It's just trying to move the car. Just trying to get the car out of the way so that we can wash Billy's S10. And as soon as the door opens, guess who's in here? We'll go for a ride? All right, let's go for a ride. Chevy. Very simple combination. It's a flat top piston, 350 bored 30 over, stock rods, stock cast crank. I believe it is a 4-bolt main block. Very simple, it's just a set of Brodix Track 1 heads. It was the first set of aluminum heads I ever bought. I believe I bought these heads back in 97, 98. They've been flat milled I don't know how many times, but the reason we used them on this car is because they're on about their last pass on the milling machine. They've got just enough left to the bottom of the intake runner to seal a gasket, and that's about it. I'm guessing that the combustion chambers are approximately 62 cc's. They started out life as 67 cc heads, and I believe they're a 215 cc intake runner. It's just got a poly strip dominator single plane intake and a 750 CFM brawler carburetor. When we get back to the house, I'll open the hood and I'll show it to you. All right. So the old 55, little history. My mom and dad bought this car in, I think, 1974 or 1975. I was born in 73, so I was only about 2 years old when they bought this car. My mom and dad were first-time parents at the time, making ends meet barely. They had moved from the farm where my dad grew up into Pataskala, my hometown, and were living. They lived in a house trailer there for a while in the mobile home court, and later they rented a small house built out of concrete blocks from my grandfather. Let's just say they didn't have much, but Dad did have a 49 F100 pickup that had a 327 small block Chevy in it, and they had a 64 Chevelle, and they had tractors and stuff out at the farm. And my dad and my mother wanted this car so bad. My dad and my mother sold everything they owned and borrowed $250 from my grandmother on my dad's side of the family to buy this car. And it almost didn't happen. The man who had the car changed his mind after he told my dad that he'd sell it to him. I think it was for $750 or $850 at the time. And it almost didn't happen. But luckily this guy's father was there at the time when Dad came to buy the car and reminded him that you had made a promise to sell the car to this man, and you need to own up to it. You need to stand behind your promise. So Mom and Dad brought the 55 home, and it sat from about 1980. I think 1980 was about the last time I can remember them really driving it or doing much with it until just last year, or this year, when we drug it out of the shed, and Mom and Dad let us bring it down here to the shop and put an engine in it. So that brings me to this video, and we'll go through some more history. I'll do another video on the 55. There's a lot of really cool things about this car that make it special to me and my family. But for today, let's just go over the engine and transmission and the rear axle combination. There seems to be a lot of interest in that. I see a lot of messages, a lot of questions about it, so let's get started. So, like I said earlier, it's just a run-of-the-mill old small block Chevy. A little dirty in here right now. We haven't cleaned it up in a while. So, like I said earlier, it's a flat top piston, 355 cubic inch small block Chevy, 30 over. It has a old set of Brodix Track 1s, like the Gen 1 Brodix Track 1 cylinder heads on it. They started life as a 67 cc chamber, and I believe they're down to about a 63 or 62 cc chamber now. They've been flat milled quite a bit over the years, since 97 when I bought them. The engine we pulled out of Billy's old 78 3/4 ton four-wheel drive pickup, and I had no idea when we pulled it out that it would have flat tops in it, but luckily it did. And so we put a camshaft in it. It's a hydraulic roller, and I just so happen to have the cam card. Let me go get that. All right, so here it is for everybody that's been asking. Yeah, it does sound really good, and to be honest with you, I'm very surprised at how well this thing runs. The story behind this camshaft is that we went to Jegs one day to buy a camshaft for this engine, and I wanted a hydraulic roller because this engine right here was originally intended to be put into Molly's Firebird that she had. That never happened for a lot of different reasons, and I don't want to get into that right now. But the Firebird project never happened. We'll just say that. And we had the engine sitting in here in the garage, and it was ready to go. But I had gone to Jegs to get a camshaft, and I really wasn't concerned about it being a perfect cam. All I just needed, I had a general idea of what I wanted in a camshaft with lift and duration and center line. And we went in there and saw my buddy Terry McMullen, my my buddy at Jegs. And I said, Terry, I need a decent retrofit hydraulic roller camshaft. What do you got in stock? He said, well, I got this, this, and this. And he pulled out 2 or 3 different options that they had in stock. And this is the one that we brought home. We just lucked into it. It just really runs good. So again, it's a competition cams, hydraulic roller. It's an XR300HR-10, 562, 580 lift, 300, 306 advertised duration, 248, 254 at 50, with a lobe separation of 110. Now, it's a little bit radical for what we're doing with it, right? But the deal is, this car, since the day I can remember it, since my first memories of this car, it's always had a pretty radical hydraulic camshaft in it. It wasn't a roller back then, it was a flat tappet. But there's some things about this car that are still the same way they were back then. The car is kind of like a time capsule. Let me show you a few details. For example, the car still uses a generator. It doesn't have an alternator. Still has the single Bale master cylinder. Still has the original front suspension. We just recently rebuilt all the front suspension, but it's still got the original steering box. The battery's still up here on the firewall. Still has the vacuum wiper motor. The reason it has a vacuum wiper motor is because my dad always had a tri-power on this thing. It was an Offenhauser tri-power with 3 Rochester 2-barrel carburetors, and the electric wiper motor would not fit with the tri-power. Now, I know you're going to ask, where's the tri-power, right? Remember I told you the heads have been shaved so many times that they're about on their last pass on the milling machine? Well, that also upsets the apple cart when it comes to bolting the intake manifold on. And this intake that's on here now is a Edelbrock, or I'm sorry, it's a Holley strip dominator. It's been on my Nova for years. It was my original set of heads and my original, my best really nice intake for the Nova. And since the heads have been milled so far, we had to oblong the intake bolt holes. And I didn't want to molest a mint original Offenhauser small block tri-power intake just to put them on this set of heads. So instead of putting the tri-power back on for right now, we mothballed the tri-power, took it back up the farm and put it in storage for safekeeping. And I went ahead and put my strip dominator on it, and we went and bought this Brawler carburetor. So this is just a standard Proform, I think they call it a Brawler carburetor, I'm not sure what they call it, but just your standard Proform 750 gas carburetor. Wasn't really happy about the color, but it was what it was. We were just trying to get something inexpensive at the time to get the car running. And I really like these carburetors. I've had a lot of good luck with them. I did, however, have to do some tuning on the carburetor. We'll go through that some other time. I don't really have time for it today. If you're interested in seeing the jet package and the air bleed package that I put in this carburetor for the old 4-speed 55, say something in the comments and I can take the carburetor off and I'll go through it and explain everything that I did, because I really had to work hard on that carburetor to make it work right on this car. Because the camshaft is a little radical and the cylinder heads are a little radical, and it is such a heavy car. It's all there. It's a all there 55 Chevy, and it's a 4-speed. I had to work a little bit of a magic operation on the carburetor to make it so that it's drivable, to tame it down a little bit, because it was so radical. It would jump and buck trying to drive it through a parking lot or trying to drive it in traffic. It was really tough. You had to constantly rev it up, and it fought me. But I kept working on it. I finally got the air bleed and the jet package and the power valve combination just right. And now you can just literally go out and fire that car up and it idles. It'll idle all day long. It doesn't matter whether it's hot or cold. It took a lot of effort, a lot of tuning, but I got it. And if you guys are interested in that, I'll go through it sometime. Leave some comments for me. So the car has a pretty good sized tire on the back of it. Those are Krager SS original to the car from like 1977, I believe, is when Mom and Dad bought these wheels. And actually I found underneath the seat the other day, or Melvin found it while he was detailing it, found a receipt for the Atlas bias ply tires that Mom and Dad put on the car in 1977. They bought them at a Ohio station in Pataskala. The receipt's in the glove box. We found it underneath the seat. But right now it has approximately a 30 to a 30 and a half, maybe a 31 inch tall tire on the back on a 15x7 wheel. Yes, they are very difficult to get up in there. They are tucked, right? But those are the original wheel wells. The car's not been cut. It's not been mini tubbed, anything like that. And we put a 456 gear in it. It still has the original 1955 rear axle, but we found a factory posi, what they call a P-case center section, that had 456 gears in it. So it has a 456 gear set and the original 55 rear axle. It is a factory posi unit. And the car will cruise around 50 to 55 miles an hour at about 2,500 RPM due to how tall the rear tire is. It is a 4-speed. It's just a standard M20 Muncie 4-speed. And this is a very, very old Hearst shifter that was intended specifically for bench seat 55 through 57 Chevys. As you can see, the handle comes out to the forward and then bends back to clear the bench seat for second and fourth gear. Pretty cool stuff. Very, very old tachometer. I believe my dad bought this in the late 70s at the Aero store, and he still has the original box to it stored up at the farm. It's a Mr. gasket, what a lot of people consider a Sun tack now. I think Sun may have bought them out or something, or bought that design. As you can see, it's just got an old antique Stuart Warner temperature gauge. Dad put that in years ago. And as far as the amp meter, it's never been hooked up. The oil pressure gauge, I'm not sure what brand of gauge that is, but it does work. Very, very old stuff here from back in the 70s. Like I said, this car's kind of like a time machine or time capsule. The car still has the original Motorola AM radio, and yep, you probably haven't seen one of those in a while. That's a realistic FM converter for the AM radio. Pretty neat stuff. No, that switch isn't hooked to anything. That's the original nitrous arming switch out of Billy's S10. I just put it in here for looks, just because it's kind of sentimental to me. I made that switch panel years ago. But pretty neat. Pretty neat stuff. Dad put a Chevelle steering wheel in it a long time ago. I've got the original steering wheel hanging in there in the shop for it. Dad didn't like the original steering wheel because they're kind of ugly. And this is a Chevelle steering wheel out of a 66 or 67 Chevelle. Just looks nice. So that's the walk around video for the 55 for today. I just had a few minutes. I thought I'd do it because I see a lot of people asking for it. If you have any more questions or comments about the old car, let me know. I'd like to do another video sometime soon about the history of the car while my dad's still here to tell some of the story. He's told some of it before on a video on Street Racing Channel, but I'd like to maybe take the car back to where Dad first saw it. And maybe get Dad to tell the story, because it's really cool. The building where the car was first found in Pataskala, where my dad first saw it, is gone. It was actually the Pataskala machine shop. And if you've ever noticed in any of the videos here in the shop, I saved the sign. Let me show you. This is one of the original signs that hung on the old Pataskala machine shop. It was a family-owned machine shop in Pataskala that stood right behind the town hall. And my dad first saw the 55 backed into the machine shop. The family that owned the machine shop, their son was into racing. He had a 66 or 67 Nova stock eliminator car for a while. And he was always buying and selling and trading cars, and our black 55 Chevy showed up there one day. And that's another story, so I'll get into that sometime. I'll go up and get Dad out of the farm and take him down there, and I'll show you guys, maybe get some pictures of the old machine shop. It's a really cool story, pretty neat. But anyway, I'm gonna hop off here for today. We're getting ready to go race up at Marion. Had a few minutes. I thought I'd take care of this little short video real quick. Like, share, and subscribe. Appreciate everybody's support. Appreciate all the love and the interest in our family and in our cars and what we do. Hope everybody has a great weekend. Talk to you later.